This is the weekend recap brought to you by the Post Route. This week we are talking about some shockers that happened on Saturday and a couple things I think we all saw coming. First up, we're going to talk about Indiana's absolute statement over Illinois. Then we're going to talk about Texas Tech standing on business and bringing home the W over the Utes. We're then going to transition into talking about whether or not Miami put the final nail in the coffin of what is the Gators season and potentially Billy Napier's career. And the absolute collapse that is Clemson and Dabo Swinney right now. Let's dive on in, starting with Indiana over Illinois. If you tuned in with us last week, you'll know that we called this game for Indiana. We were 100% sure that Curt Cignetti was not going to take this type of banter against his team lying down. Everybody thought Illinois was going to come and take this off of them. And instead, the Indiana Hoosiers made an incredible statement with a 63-10 win over Illinois. Fernando Mendoza, oh my gosh, spreading the ball out like crazy. He looked great, calm, controlled in the pocket. He is creeping up on 1,000 yards passing this season. He also threw 5 touchdowns on Saturday. He is running this offense like a well-oiled machine. They had 31 first downs. The Indiana offense really started with a blocked punt by D'Angelo Pond, and it just unraveled from there for Illinois. Indiana's defense was completely in sync, just immaculate in all areas of defense. They are now currently ranked as the top 5 defense in the country and number 2 when forcing teams into 3 and outs. Just an all-around spectacular performance. Coverages were tight, pressures coming out the wazoo. They were not letting up. Illinois' receivers could not find a way to get open. They couldn't move the chains. The line of scrimmage was completely dominated by Indiana, and Illinois just never really found a way around this defense. And quarterback for Illinois, Luke Altmaier, he spent more time on his backside than he did on his own 2 feet. He was sacked, I think, 7 times. I mean, it seemed like more than that, if I'm being completely honest with you, but he just couldn't catch a break. Illinois is going to need a rebound win after this loss if they want any chance of remaining a part of the top 25 conversation. They do host USC this week. Curious to see how it goes for them, but they are going to need to figure something out. Indiana will hit the road for the first time this season, heading over to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes. This should be an easy win for them. Not to take any teams lightly, but Indiana shouldn't have any problems this week, although we didn't think Clemson was going to have any problems with Syracuse, so I guess you never know. Next up on the docket, let's talk Texas Tech over Utah. Again, if you joined us last week for the Post Route, you would know that we called this game for Texas Tech. We said last week it would be crucial for the Texas Tech Red Raiders defense to maintain the run game of the Utes, specifically quarterback Dabo Swinney. And boy, did they do it. This Texas Tech defense was superb. Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire has been telling us for weeks, this defense is no joke. You know, we thought, they're not tested. They haven't really played anybody. They've not played a significant offense to really test that theory. Well, they did this week, and I'll tell you what, it was incredible. They held the Utah run game to 100 yards, I think 100 yards, which is incredible from a run game that averages over 200 yards per game. They held Wayshawn Parker to just 22 yards. Dabo Swinney was forced to throw the ball constantly. this was an outstanding performance by the Red Raiders without their star quarterback. At the start of the third quarter, I think in the opening drive of the third quarter, to be completely honest with you, quarterback Baron Morton took a pretty significant hit, colliding with a linebacker, hit his head pretty hard and did not come back in. He's likely out, I would assume, for a concussion, though they've not confirmed or denied anything yet. And they started out the second half with Will Hammond, their backup. And Will Hammond stepped into this offense like it was designed for him. He led 4 scoring drives and sealed the deal for Texas Tech. The one piece of this game that really killed Texas, and they need to clean up if they want any chance of competing with some of these higher ranked teams, penalties, man. They had 14 penalties for over 120 yards. That just can't happen. I mean, when you're playing this Utah team, you eked one out and you came out on top. But you get into some of these bigger teams, once you're talking college football playoffs, if they can make it that far with Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, there's no way 14 penalties for 122 yards is going to make you competitive against teams like that. You got to clean that up. But that was really the only significant downfall of their game. The real question that we all need to be asking ourselves right now is Texas Tech a complete team that could potentially compete in a college football playoff? Personally, after watching them on Saturday, I think, yeah. I think if they can keep things up like that, I think if they can blow out these smaller teams that are unranked or non-conference opponents for the rest of the season, and they can win big over them, but they can also continue to win big over some of the more significant opponents that they face this year, I think this is a no-brainer that they end up in the top 12. Utah, on the other hand, I think all hopes are dashed for them. Unfortunately, they only have one ranked opponent left on their schedule, and that's BYU at the very end of the season. And currently, BYU is ranked at 25, so who knows if they will even still be ranked at that point. They just don't have any more larger games to showcase what they're made of. I just don't see it in the cards for Utah. I've been wrong in the past. It's just, it doesn't seem like there's an opportune road for them to make their way back into that top 12. Let us now discuss the tragic downfall of the Florida Gators. My word. In a 26-7 win over the Gators, Miami again just solidifies themselves as this complete football team. Miami's defense just Arch Manning flexed over these Florida Gators. Pressures, sacks. They held the Florida Gators to 32 yards in the first half. Florida seemed to just really struggle to string several plays together in a drive. There were moments for the Florida Gator offense that you thought, oh, they might turn this around. They had these moments of brilliance where you thought just maybe they could do it. And unfortunately, all of those moments just never really came together for them. They didn't have any complete drives that just, from beginning to end, looked spectacular from all fronts. The entire game, DJ Lagway, this poor kid, had 61 total passing yards. That's it. 61. In a total offense of only 140 yards. 140 yards of total offense does not a winning football team make. Florida Gators went 0-13 on third downs. They punted 7 times. The 6 times that they actually stayed out there to go for fourth down, I think they only got it 2 out of the 6 times. Just hot mess. hot mess of an offense. DJ Lagway was also sacked 4 times. This game stayed close until about the fourth quarter. As a matter of fact, the Florida's defense was the, again, bright spot of their entire team, and they held Miami's offense to just 13 points in the first 3 quarters. I think that this might have been the final straw for the Gators. They got a tough schedule for the rest of the season. Probably one of the toughest in most of college football. They lined them up, man. They had some high hopes for this season. And I just don't see a path forward where they win this out. If they can't beat some of the teams that they've already faced, there's just no way they're beating anybody going forward. One of 2 things happened here. Either this showed that Miami's defense is leaps and bounds beyond where we thought it was, or that this Florida Gators offense is an absolute travesty. I know which way I'm leaning. You can take your pick, form your own opinions. That's on you. But this was not their best showing. I don't see how Billy Napier continues on with the Florida Gators. I just don't see how they let it happen. Now, neither one of these teams plays again until October. And like we said, I just don't see a path forward for the Florida Gators. I really don't. But maybe a couple of weeks off will help them reset things and just push forward. Miami, however, will be taking their talents to Tallahassee to take on Florida State in the Battle of Florida, because these 2 are the only 2 left to claim dominance over the entire Sunshine State. This will be an absolute doozy. I'm sure in 2 weeks, you can catch us back on the post route. We'll be breaking down that game and who we think is going to take it. Last but not least, on the weekend recap, let us all say a prayer for the Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney. Going into this week, I thought there's no way. There's 0 chance that Dabo Swinney starts this year 1-3. I couldn't have fathomed a world where it happened. But here we are. Stunned. The Clemson Tigers were stunned at home 34-21 by the Syracuse Orangemen. Quarterback for Syracuse, Steve Angeli, who is a Notre Dame transfer, managed to throw for about 244 yards before he had to leave the game for a lower leg injury. There has not been a ton of news about what is going to go on with him going forward. He may miss a couple of weeks. They're talking could be season ending. We're just not sure at this point. Ricky Collins Jr. is his backup, and he came in and looked pretty darn good. So I don't think that Syracuse has... I don't think they should be super duper worried about the quarterback situation, considering what Ricky was able to pull off late in that game. But I mean, obviously we don't want Steve Angeli hurt for long. Hopefully they'll be able to figure out what's going on with him and get him back out into the field. Despite the loss, Cade Klubnik did throw for over 360 yards of offense and 3 touchdowns. He did tend to, in my personal opinion, he struggled with some accuracy issues. It looked like he's about 60% on his completion rate, which is not terrible. It's not spectacular. It's It just really kind of seemed like he was out of sync with some of his receivers. There was a couple guys that he missed long, a couple passes that he was not throwing the ball where his receivers were not yet. Just small things like that. Neither one of these teams converted great on third down. Both sides had within the same amount of penalties. I want to say 7 penalties, 8 penalties, somewhere in that general area. Clemson's just happened to come at terrible times. They had 2, maybe 3, but specifically 2 roughing the passer penalties that I saw, giving Syracuse a whole new set of downs when it should have been a 3 and out for them. Halftime was about 2 hours because of lightning delay. That's tough. That's tough on any team. It's tough for a team that has a ton of momentum. It was tough for a team struggling to find momentum. That's a big break. That could have just as well busted Syracuse as much as it could have lifted up Clemson. It clearly didn't do either one of those things. Syracuse came out the same fire that they started that game with, and Clemson just never really got into any type of rhythm, to be completely honest with you. Fran Brown, the coach for Syracuse, he had some aggressive offensive play calling going on. It was incredible to watch, but that has been his game plan for some of these larger teams in the ACC. His play, he knows physically they're not going to dominate over some of these larger teams, and that's okay. Fran Brown is outsmarting them very quickly by, we're scoring as much as humanly possible and going as fast as humanly possible from the first quarter until we are gassed out, putting as many points on the board as possible and hoping to grow that lead to a point where it's difficult for their opponent to come back. And it worked. When you look at the way these offenses ran, the way the defenses ran, neither one of these teams, this should have stacked up well. When you look at the stat lines post-game, you think, wow, that was pretty close. I mean, time of possession, Syracuse had time of possession at 30 minutes and Clemson had it at 29 minutes. They were virtually the same. I do not know what is going on with Clemson. The returning experience that they have, the talent that they have, there is no circumstance where this should be the start to their season, and I just don't understand what is happening there. Post-game pressers were awkward at best. I mean, last week you have Dabo Swinney basically saying out loud that, if Clemson's tired of winning, they can get rid of me. Dude, you ain't winning. And now you got Cade Klubnik in a post-game presser talking about Syracuse faking injuries to try and get the tempo up. It's a lot of passing the buck at Clemson. There's a lot of blame getting thrown around, not a lot of accountability getting taken for your shortcomings, and they need to seriously regroup and figure out how this team meshes and gels going forward. Otherwise, this season is just over for them. Can Clemson salvage this season? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have a tough schedule going forward. There's maybe only one team, maybe 2 on there that look like they might be a test for Clemson, although we never saw Syracuse coming for them. This should have been an easy win for them at home, and now, unfortunately, it's set them up to start the season 1-3. And nobody knows what in the heck is going on with Dabo Swinney. Thank you for joining us for the weekend recap. Stay tuned this week to catch a new episode of the Post Route, where we will be breaking down Week 5 college football games, some of the biggest of this season so far, and we'll be recapping some NFL games from the previous weekend. That's the route. Catch you next time.